Hey y'all, I wanted to put together just a quick video on the Veers Chantodo set. This is not a build that I've created, but it is a build that I have been playing for multiple seasons now. It is my favorite build in the game. I love it because it's great for solo play and it's great for group play. It's quick. You don't feel like you're running behind a group if you're playing with a group. You can get bounties done fairly quickly by yourself if you prefer to run solo. It may not be as fast as some other builds out there, but as far as the versatility of this build, it does everything that you could want it to do. So I want to go over the playstyle, I want to go over the gear, I want to go over the mechanics of how to play it, kind of walk you through, because while once you get it, it's really easy to play and it'll become second nature. Trying to get the timing down on some of this stuff and understanding where your power is coming from does take a little bit of time to kind of get rolling. So let's go ahead and take a look at the wizard. As far as the gear goes, I'm going to post a link to Diablo fans. I put the build that I'm currently running in there. And then I talk a little bit in the section below about your different choices if you don't remember this, but I'll go over it too. Jumping right into the gear, you will need to have all 6 pieces of the Veers set equipped. That will give you every ruin for Archon. Your stacks will increase your attack speed, your armor, and your resistance, and you'll gain reduced damage reduction, and you'll have a damage bonus from having all 6 pieces on. So it's really important you have those on. But then the other important part where you get the majority of your damage from is the Chantodo set. You need to have both of them. You can upgrade rare wands if you're struggling to get a Chantodo's Will, and you can get the orbs from Kadala. I do currently have the Endless Walk set on. That's the Traveler's Pledge with the Compass Rose. I'm using that because I need the extra damage reduction because my life is low right now and I'm playing hardcore. So that's a huge benefit for me. But if you're playing softcore, or if your life is really high, say you have a lot of pieces with vitality in them, so you have life over 1 million, you may not need the Endless Walk. You can run squirts with a different ring. There's a lot of options, especially if you're playing season 20 right now, where you have a lot of wiggle room with the cube. We can go over those in a moment, but so that's what I'm currently wearing, along with an obsidian. An obsidian is a must because it's going to give you your cooldown. It's going to get that cooldown rolling a lot faster than without it. You're going to want to use your Fazulas, which will give you, you'll start your stacks up higher instead of starting at 0 when you get into Archon. And again, we'll go over the stacks in a moment. And then I have on the Blood Bracers, which increase my shields, so that's more damage reduction. Moving over to the cube, I do have on the Swami, which is going to give me, it's going to keep my Archon stacks longer after I drop out of Archon. So those stacks that I built up in my Archon cycle are going to stick around after I drop out. And if you have the right amount of cooldown, you're going to be able to jump back into Archon faster, and you'll have double the stacks. Basically, you'll be working with 2 different stacks, and those are additive. So I also have Messerschmitt's Reaver up, which is super helpful for running speeds, because then you don't have to worry about getting your cooldown running. If you hit enough enemies with the Messerschmitts, it's going to just take the cooldown factor out of the build. And then I have the Halo Carini. Again, I'm running hardcore, so I'm doing everything I can for damage reduction. If your cooldown is great and you don't need the damage reduction, like I said, you can drop the Compass Rose Traveler's Pledge set and run squirts with either a COE. If you want the Halo of Carini for the damage reduction, you can wear that and drop the COE. You can put in Nemesis Bracers. You could put in a Furnace for extra damage. There's a lot of wiggle room with season 20 that you're going to be able to have a lot of fun with this based on what kind of cooldown you have and what kind of life you have, and you may have to kind of figure it out and figure out what's best for your build. But this is what I'm currently set up as. set up with. This is a pretty typical build. When I go to push, I will change out my powerful for stricken, and I will change my Messerschmitt's Reaver for Furnace. Let's go ahead and talk about the skills real quick. Starting with the left click, I have on Arcane Torrent, which is going to proc your Obsidian Ring to get your cooldown running. You are going to want your cooldown to be between 50 and 55%. I'm not sure if I mentioned that or not. So that is a number to shoot for. So you'll use your Arcane Torrent for that. I recommend having your Force Standstill keybind set up in a spot that's comfortable for you, because you are going to want to use it just to make sure you're proccing that Obsidian. You use your Black Hole to help you get higher stacks. This each enemy that you get in it increases your cold spells. I use Storm Armor, Power the Storm. It's just what I prefer. It decreases the cost of your arcane power, which is great when you're trying to proc that Obsidian. You don't want to run out of arcane power while you're doing that. Your magic weapon deflection is going to give you more shields for damage reduction. Your teleport, I prefer always to run a wizard with teleport. It's just my preference. If there's a wizard build without teleport, I tend not to play it. I have this in slot 3, and the reason I have it in slot 3 is because your Archon here, when you go into Archon, those skills you cannot move. They are set skills, and their teleport is on 3. So to save myself a headache of switching everything over, I always have teleport on 3. I currently have my teleport on Safe Passage, which gives me damage reduction. And again, I'm playing hardcore, so I'm trying to get as much damage reduction as possible just so that I'm not dying. The Archon, you don't have to have a rune selected. I just kind of do out of habit. So I use slow time when I do collect it, or when I select it. For your passives, I always run Unstable Anomaly. Doesn't matter if I'm playing hardcore or softcore. I find the benefit of it with softcore because then I don't have to keep waiting for my time to reset if I die. It gives me just a little bit more wiggle room. And then if I am dying a lot on top of the Unstable Anomaly, I know I'm probably pushing too high for what damage I currently have. But for hardcore, a proc is absolutely necessary. If you are playing hardcore without a proc, then props to you. I'll never do it. I don't like just dying on a whim. So Galvanizing Ward is a great one. It gives you extra shields. Evocation drops all your cooldowns by 20%, and then I'm also using Audacity, which is 30% extra damage for enemies within 15 yards. And considering Archon, you're typically hitting people in the face, you are going to be really close to them, so it's great to have that extra damage. If you're running squirts, you may want to consider running Unwavering Will, which will give you higher armor, higher all resist. You can also do Blur, which decreases your damage. There's a lot of wiggle room here with your passives. You can kind of play with what you like, and if you aren't playing hardcore and you want to drop the Unstable Anomaly, you can also go for something like Cold-Blooded, which is going to increase some of your damage too. As far as the mechanics of playing this build go, the first thing I do whenever I go into a rift, I hit 1 and 2, again, set it and forget it. These last for 10 minutes. They'll count down. You'll see it. If that green bar starts dropping a little bit, just hit the buttons again when you're out of Archon. If you're pushing, you'll have to do it at least once. If you're running speeds, you're not going to have to hit it again. So once you have your storm armor and your magic weapon equipped, you're going to go into Archon. You're going to start with however many stacks you have on your Fazulas, and it's going to count right here. So you see 44 stacks. I have a 44 stack on my Fazula's belt. You're going to hit enemies. We're going to pretend Kadala is someone we can hit here. You're going to start with the left click, which is Frozen Strike, and you're going to get those stacks up. When you drop out of Archon, you'll be standing still and using your Arcane Torrent to get your cooldown reset. And again, we're not hitting anything, so I'm losing arcane power, and it's not doing a cooldown because I'm not hitting anything. But for simplicity's sake, we're going to say we're hitting enemies here. You're going to use this to get your cooldown. And then before you go into Archon, you're going to use your black hole and gather the enemies. The more enemies you can get in that black hole, the more damage you're going to have. And then you're going to go back into Archon and you're going to start basically slapping them with this Frozen Strike. You're going to have, if you have the Swami equipped, you're going to have 2 of these now, and I'll show you. I'm going to go in and do this with enemies, but I want to talk through it first. You're going to have 2 of these boxes here. When those boxes hit over 205 stacks, you're going to switch to the right click, which is a beam that comes out. And of course, we're not in Archon, so you can't see it. Well, let's go ahead into Halls of Agony, and we'll show you how this is played. So I'm hitting my 1 and 2. Depending on your damage reduction, you can start an Archon here. If you'll see here, these are my Chantodo stacks. I need those, ideally, to get to 20 to get my max damage. So you're just going to teleport into the groups. You're going to smack them with that left click. As you can see, I'm getting my stacks up. I'm currently in 91. Now we're going to drop out of Archon. I'm going to use Arcane Torrent. I'm going to wait for this here to hit 20. I'm going to use that orb to suck all them in. I'm sitting at 8. Go into Archon. Every now and then I hit 1 to just get some more stacks here. And again, I'm running Mesher's Smiths, so I'm getting plenty of cooldown. I almost don't even have to use Arcane Torrent at the moment, but if I was pushing, you would want it. Alright, so gathering these. We're over 200 stacks, so I'm using this. It's called Disintegration Wave. We're using that. We can do this from a distance. You can use this slow time bubble. The only thing I recommend is just be careful. There are certain ground effects that will actually cause you to proc. They kind of like magnify in that slow time bubble, so be careful. I don't typically end up using it a whole lot, but that's just a personal preference. Alright. There you can see my obsidian was working because I came in fresh. It's getting those cooldown from the obsidian. You can see here, this is my Halo Carini, which is telling me that I've got damage reduction coming from that. I get that from my storm armor hitting enemies from a distance. It's not too far, but if you are sitting up top doing melee damage and you drop the Halo Carini, you're going to have to teleport back a little bit to get that to proc again. And again, that was the little, it looked like the storm armor thing that popped up down here. So that should be just about it. Again, I'm going to go ahead and post a link to Diablo fans below in the description. Just remember that, you know, if you see that the Halo of Carini is queued, but say you have a GG Halo of Carini and a really crappy obsidian, you can always switch those and put obsidian in the cube, or you can put Convention of Elements in the cube. You can kind of play around with that. Don't forget, you want your cooldown to be between 50 and 55%. You can get cooldown on the shoulders, on your rings, you can get it on your weapon, you can get it on the offhand, you can get it on your amulet. Honestly, this build will not work without, it won't feel comfortable until you have a Swami, you have a Fazula's, you have both of the weapons. I don't really recommend putting this build together until you have everything. The only thing I think in the beginning that you can kind of run without was the blood bracers. If you have nemesis bracers, you can run with those. If you can't get a squirts and you can't get a traveler's pledge and a compass rose, you can always run something like the flavor of time or an immunity amulet. What, you know, there's so much playroom with this, but you have to have the 6-piece spheres. You have to have the weapons. I think the Swami is pretty dang important. I don't like to run it without the Swami because you lose that extra damage. And then the cooldown. The cooldown is so important to this build. So if you can't get to 55% cooldown with your gear, you're definitely going to want to have a Messerschmitt's Reaver and running. Otherwise, it's going to feel really slow and you're not going to be able to hop back into Archon. If you have any questions, let me know. I know I kind of ran through it a little fast. I'm always willing to answer questions during stream. If you want to come in and ask me questions there, you can ask me questions in Discord. I can link that below too. Feel free, if you think I missed something, let me know. There's a good chance it probably did. I don't typically do build guides, but I've had so many questions lately about it that I decided it was time to put one out for you guys in my own words instead of how other people explain it, because I like to go a little bit more simple. So if you have any questions, please let me know. Thank you for watching, and I will see you soon.